What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boyce, and this is another episode of the Facts Project. Today, two very special guests. I have Wells Thompson and Dalton Shannon. We are here to talk about MechaTon. Issues 4 and 5 are now live on Kickstarter, so everybody get out there and get that. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be here.
Absolutely, and I made for damn sure to put Frankenstein the Unconscious.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, we noticed.
I definitely appreciate you guys having that. So for you guys having this issue now it's in its 4th and 5th issue. This, of course, being a passion project for you both because you have a love, of course, comic books and kaijus. You talked about this being a Scott Pilgrim meets Pacific Rim type storyline. If you could tell the folks at home and force the audiences about MechaTon and its wholesome genre comedy for all ages, or how it's basically brought to your attention. Tell us about MechaTon.
Yeah, MechaTon is a big mismatch of everything that we know and love in life. But the basic plot, it's about a glove that crash lands on Earth. Brother and sister find it, and they discover that anything they punch while wearing it turns into a mech. So a big battle mech, whether it's a hot dog stand or a house. And where there are mechs, there are kaiju. So kaiju shenanigans ensue, and people get it on video, and everyone decides they want a piece of it. So there are tons of complications of that, tons of big battles, and lots of lovable characters. Yeah, like you said, it's a lot of action, it's a lot of comedy, it's a lot of heart. We don't. I hate the term all ages because that makes it sound like it's for kids. It's for everyone. I know a couple of kids, like 10, 11-year-old kids that love it and bother me for when the next issue is coming out. But I know, just as many people in their 20s and 30s and 40s that love it as well. So I think it really is a comic that anyone can enjoy.
Dalton?
Yeah, copy paste. Wells covered the bases pretty well. We tried very hard to make sure that MechaTon was as all ages friendly as we could make it. And when the modern day notion of all ages tends to be a PG-13 Marvel film, it kind of falls into place, or you can write it with a little more bite than what normal children's entertainment is, and kids are still going to go for it, and adults are still going to go for it. So we don't ever have to talk down or hold back in any serious kind of way. We just find what fits the tone, and we go from there. It's a great malleable kind of series for that.
Definitely. Now, where did this love of kaijus, or better yet, monsters, come from?
Well, I don't remember a world without Godzilla. So I've always been a big kaiju fan, and as I got older, I got into more like mech anime and like Ultraman, Power Rangers, all that kind of stuff. So all of the ludicrous genre fiction from Japan, I've always had a deep admiration for, especially tokusatsu. So yeah, and then, of course, superhero fiction goes into that as well. So, like, it ended up just being this one big, like Will said, mishmash of love. And, yeah, I never stopped loving that stuff.
So it's safe to say, Dalton, that you're a heavy Power Rangers fan.
I don't know if it'd be safe. I am much more kaiju fan, so I tend more towards Godzilla and Ultraman. Okay, so I was into so much stuff as a kid. Like, I was into Godzilla and Batman and all sorts of stuff, and I was running around the house just like kicking and punching things because I was a little kid, and my mom saw that I was marginally interested in Power Rangers, and she saw what Power Rangers was. She was like, "We have enough of that in this house. We have enough." I think Dalton's going to be okay if he doesn't watch Power Rangers. And I was, but now as an adult, I'm getting very into the comics and Super Sentai in general. So there's a lot of catching up to do in regards to that. But yeah, I still love that stuff, even if I didn't necessarily grow up with it.
Excellent. So as far as the dynamic between Derek and Leah, the brother and sister duo of this storyline, You tend to find Leah is, of course, an artist who basically is amongst her creativity. And then you find Derek, who has an obsession with video games and tends to be a slacker. Now, now, Wells, could you please describe the dynamic between these two?
Very loving codependence is what I would say. I think like we sometimes frame it a little bit harshly for Derek, calling him a slacker. I sometimes refer to him as a bit dumb. I think they're both kind of in that vein. Like Leah is an artist, but what that really means is unemployed and kind of living in her parents' house with her brother. They're both equally guilty of that. And Derek is just kind of a normal dude, in my opinion, that I've seen growing up. Is just he wants to make the world better. He doesn't know how, and he hates. He doesn't really love his job. He doesn't really have any like strong ambition outside of that. He loves video games and he likes helping out his neighbors. And the dynamic between them is very. I just wanted to capture like a good brother sister dynamic, honestly, and sort of explore something I hadn't seen in a lot of media that's focused on these kind of characters, which is the backseat gamer dynamic. Growing up, I I had to learn to read because my brother wouldn't read out loud the text from Ocarina of Time to me whenever he would talk to a character, and I would get really annoyed. That was my inspiration, actually learn how to do that myself. But from the time I was little, I was watching him play games and I was fascinated by it, and I wanted to know what it was about. And now as an adult, my wife, who loves video games but isn't the best player, loves to watch me play stuff. That's a date night for us. We sit down and I boot up Metroid Prime Remastered and we just go through, and she points out stuff that I missed, and we just go through and explore. So yeah, I wanted to sort of capture that dynamic a little bit with them, as well as just that very realistic kind of brother-sister mentality where they can insult each other in 1 minute, but be on the same page at all other times. And it's them versus the world, even if they never say it out loud.
Definitely. And you can obviously tell through like the first few pages that Dalton does not have, I'm sorry, not Dalton. Derek has a Derek has is not too shy with confronting authority figures.
No, not particularly.
Yeah. No, it's interesting writing Derek and Leah because they are 20-somethings with that slacker kind of mentality. And in a way, it feels like we're writing like the prototypical millennial in that regard, where a lot of us feel a little directionless. We feel a little like we want to do good but don't know how to do it. And this book has kind of allowed us to give Derek a little bit of a purpose with the glove, and now that he has a little bit of direction, he's able to kind of confront a lot of things he may not have had a lot of power to do so. Like with especially in issue 1 when he confronts Mr. Moore about the late pizza, like he took it upon himself to make sure the pizza was late so that they could get it for free. And he kind of brings this up casually to Mr. Moore. He's like, no, they needed the help. It's fine. I don't know why it's a big deal. And then Mr. Moore promptly fires him. And Derek's a little upset about it, but I mean, you see him in the car afterwards. He's like, he doesn't know what to do now that he's kind of lost his job. And now when he gets the glove, you see reluctance to kind of take it on, but you also start to see more of even more of that confrontation against authority figures start to blossom. Especially, I think, like the way he interacts with the officers in chapter 3 is distinctly different from the way he interacts with Mr. Moore in chapter 1. He's a little bit more like a little more quippy. He's a little he's not as willing to just kind of sit back and take it now that he's kind of gotten a taste of what the glove can do. but he's also willing to still work with people. Like he's not just going to write off
Yeah.
anybody in an authority position. He wants to work with people. He
Right.
just wants to make sure they're not being a dick while they're doing it.
Yeah. Now, would you say that comes from the fact that Derek and both Leah have a, I guess, a big heart of sorts towards their community? Now, the way that basically this story was, of course, encompassed, the sense of community, of course, stands out a lot in this film, and the caring for the people within their community tends to happen. Did that come from a sense of how you wrote it because of basically personal experiences?
Well, it's something we care about a lot. It's just like sort of fostering a sense of community and finding people on, in your neighborhood and in your local level, that whose life you can impact in a serious way. People make a big deal about, wanting to change the world and wanting to do good for people. And like the most impact you can have. Yeah. Let's just acknowledge this. Yes, it's a cat.
Yep. I figured that.
Quaylak is my cat's name. And she loves attention. So, but yeah, no, that's something we care about. We wanted to foster a sense of community. I try to in my daily life. It's how Dalton and I kind of started doing this. Is we were trying to get a bunch of writers together to sort of create a community where we didn't have to go it alone.
Nice. Dalton, would you say the same for you?
Yeah. Nobody has a giant club that can turn hot dog carts into mech. So we can't
Right.
all kind of impact the world in the same way Derek can, but we can all kind of impact somebody's world in a positive way. And I think we show that with Derek, and that comes from a place where sometimes the best you can do is just to give your neighbor a hand with the groceries. And we really made sure like that has survived from the very first draft is the Derek and his pizza. So like it's super important to us to make sure that having that sense of a fostered community and making sure you have connections with those neighbors, that's the real way to kind of like impact the world.
Yeah.
And also punching things.
For sure. I think it was important for us in this story that Derek not be a good guy because he is suddenly imbued with the power to do good stuff. He's just a decent person who now has extraordinary power. And what do you do with that, and how do you respond to that? And not a perfect person. He's still a slacker. He's still a guy who's like, I just want to go home and play video games. I don't want to punch the insect today. I heard a critique of the character and of the sort of scenario we set up in issue 1 that said what he's doing is stealing from the pizza company, or the store that he works for. And like, I disagree with that perspective, but it's but it's not wrong either. Like it's just a different way of looking at it. Like, he is in one sense being, thoughtless toward the people that employ him. And on the other hand, he's trying to help this family make ends meet, which I think is the nobler goal. But but that's not a black and white issue. Is all. I don't.
Very true, because well, if we take, for instance, outside of the first issue where we basically got the discovery of the alien glove and the technology that basically was brought with it, the story, of course, is broadened a bit to where now everybody's after it. So like people, of course, want to get their hands on it.
Sure.
They've seen it in action and they understand exactly what it does. So you get this component now within the storyline where the military is after it. You get the society's opinion of exactly what the glove is. And therefore, outside of just the glove itself, you get therefore opinions of, why does Derek get to be the one to have this glove? Or, saying well, why isn't his sister talking him out of this, of him even having this type of technology? He doesn't seem like somebody that should have all this power, but and then yet he does.
Yeah, no, it gets complicated very quickly, and that's something that we grapple with in issues 4 and 5. 4 in particular, the press start to get involved. People figure out who Derek is. There's a big like crowd that forms outside of his house, and in equal measure, they love him and they hate him. And so it is, at least in small bit, kind of that looking at what happens when you become something bigger than yourself, even if it's by mistake, which is, I think, an interesting thing in today's world. All of us are capable of doing that without even realizing it.
Right.
You know, we're one viral tweet away from like our lives becoming entirely public and open to scrutiny. And that's a really cool thing and an interesting thing, but also kind of a scary thing. Yeah. And we wanted to kind of show that, show how that could play out in some ways. Yeah, no, it's we dive into a lot with the glove, and at the end of issue 3, like you said, we start to get the first taste of people really wanting part of it, are wanting like little pieces of it. Obviously the police department is skeptical about this kid having this much power. Mr. Moore, the boss who fired Derek at the beginning, immediately comes up to him and says, "Hey, no, we can work something out. How'd you like to be a mascot? You know,
right?
How'd you like to use the glove to sell my pizza?" So you start to get people kind of fighting over it for different means, and how that culminates, we will see. But yeah, no, it's a story that can and does spiral very quickly into larger and larger and larger implications.
They're very in over their heads.
Yeah, because I was wondering, like, how are you able to balance the fact that you've created this character who is pretty careless and carefree about, you know, like how he goes on about his business, and yet everybody outside of the norm is taking the object of him having alien technology as being so serious, and how he plays into effect. It's almost like, yeah, I necessarily don't give a shit that anybody cares that I have this.
Sure.
You know? And,
well, I think
but everybody just basically making it their viewpoint to be like, they're like, no, you shouldn't have this.
Right.
And he's like, guys, I just want to play video games.
I was gonna say, I think the essential component that we landed on is he hates it. He can't stand it.
Right.
Like, as soon as he realizes that this thing is bigger than him, he's like, take it off. And they're like, it's stuck. You can't. Yeah, no, lots of little moments in these upcoming issues that I love. The first thing, or the very second he can get away and just like go play video games in a basement, he does. And that's when a crowd starts forming outside of his house, so he can't escape it anywhere he goes. And it's just builds and builds and builds. You know, it's that wound that if you don't get it treated, it's going to fester. And he's just like, won't. Well, that's a terrible metaphor, but you know what I mean. Like, he won't acknowledge it.
And by the end of issue 5, it's going to be a very long time before he gets back to that basement. He has to, like, he's really thrown into a position where he can't ignore it anymore. He can't pretend it's not there, and he has to start facing the world and their opinions going forward, and how he handles that on an emotional and a physical sense.
Yeah, because necessarily in a lot of stories, you find somebody that's going through like a power struggle. They can't contain themselves, because once they realize they have so much power, they start to go berserk with it. Like, they almost turn into a version of themselves that they wouldn't normally see. But you have somebody like Derek that is like, sticking to his guns. Is like, I don't even want to be this at all.
Yeah. I wanted to go the opposite approach with that. What stuck out to me, so to take this in another direction that is nerd culture, like the Lord of the Rings, in those movies, what is the only thing the entire time, all 3 movies, the only thing the hobbits talk about is, I can't wait to go home. You know, I can't wait to be back home and have my 11 meals in a day and nap all the time and just be a fun, like, life-loving hobbit again. And then they get home, and it's just everything weighs on them, and everything has changed, and they can't do it. And like, it's just to the point where Frodo has to leave. Like, you can't do it anymore.
Mhm.
And I always loved that, just sort of the implications of that sort of life-changing event. And even though it's all you want is to go back home and do everything to go back to normal, it really can't be anymore. It's a really beautiful thing, and it's slightly tragic, and I really wanted to bring that to Derek's character.
Now, would you say, if I could ask, how much of this storyline, because now we're at issue 5, how much further, how much broader is this world in MechaTon?
Well, we have a loose outline for, I believe, 15 or so issues, so about 3 arcs. At the end of 5, when everything has hit the fan this time, the doors really get flung open and the world opens up. And if they didn't realize they were in over their heads before, they do now.
The subtitle for issue 5 is Finish Line, or realizing that this is the first leg of a pentathlon, which I feel like really sums it up. It's just like, we thought we were done, and now it is just so much more.
Yeah, there's more characters introduced, there's more mechs, and there's bigger problems, because eventually Derek's going to have to start answering for things that maybe he didn't even want to be a part of in the first place. But now we're finding that the absolute power is corrupting maybe not Derek necessarily, but everyone around him. And he's like, I just want this to stop, but he can't make it stop. So we have to kind of explore what that world looks like. And it's I'm super excited for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it almost to the point where Leah becomes a sort of I'm not going to say she comes out as somewhat of as corrupted in a sense, to kind of talk Derek out of this, but does that tend to be a clue of how this is going forward?
Leah plays a key role in the second arc.
The series, really.
About that. I mean, in the whole series, she is like the relationship between her and Derek is really the heart of the entire story. But yeah, she
start to really form in that relationship.
It is put under stress, and she has a huge role to play in the second arc. I don't want to get too far into it just because I don't want to spoil anything, but we have big plans as far as that's concerned. I think you're hitting on something very big.
As I'm reading it, I'm sort of seeing like Leah as having this sort of the angel on the left shoulder, the Jiminy Cricket to Pinocchio type deal, as far as being the good conscience to anything that might go awry with Derek. So she tends to have like this conscious role in her brother's life.
In a sense, yeah. She's the one who, he's in the suit, and she's the one who says, go fight the bug. And he's like, I would never have thought to do that. Moreover, no. And she just like straight up is like, do it. Or, I think she says, I'm going to leak your search history, your browser history. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. So yeah, she has a lot more drive and vision than he does, for sure. She sees something cool, she wants to get it done, she wants to figure out everything about it, and he in a sense is sort of the vessel that she directs, which is again where that backseat gamer kind of dynamic comes into play, is that she's the one calling the shots during the fights. She sees everything that he sees, and she's the one telling him, you get more points with the blaster combo. Don't mash X. But there is sort of I don't want to say a dark side of that, but like the other side of that is she is sort of self-centered, and she has that. She is very goal oriented and motivated, but sometimes that means sort of disregarding what Derek thinks and feels about a situation. Like, she does not ask for his permission to put the glove on. She just shoves it on his hand because she thinks it's cool and she wants to see what's going on.
Right. So there's this big ass curiosity factor, I guess, that's brought into it. Because the first time, like I'm of course reading the summaries and everything like that, the aspect of the alien technology glove, of course, brings me back to an older age, of course, when I was young, and I'm looking at it as the Nintendo Power Glove, and looking at the movie Wizard with Fred Savage,
Absolutely,
and his little brother who. Of course, another brother combo, but a sibling combo, to where it's more so aiding and abetting the little brother, of course, who has ownership of a Nintendo Power Glove in a tournament, because he feels as though he's the only one that can get it done, and the only way to get it done is through coaching him.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I think you nailed
it. Definitely. So outside of well, I can't even say outside of the monster realm, you two, of course, have had your hand in not only just MechaTon as a 5-issue series, but a very popular IP, and that is Frankenstein right here in this first one.
Frankenstein the Unconquered, absolutely.
So this is
what a banger of a book, man.
I gotta say so myself. So when the actual IP for Frankenstein, of course, a lot of IPs do get the I guess the longevity enough for them to be adapted by anyone. To take on a public domain IP to do Frankenstein for anybody that hasn't had the ability to do it themselves, what does it take? Because everybody understands Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as something of a classic themselves. When you take into that and then look on to doing this yourselves, what was encompassed in you guys creating that?
I honestly just wanted to see Frank with a broadsword. I was like, let's just take Boris Karloff and give him a sword. It's great. But no, we have a deep love and respect for Shelley's original novel, so much that we made Frankenstein the Unconquered a sequel to the novel. And we also love the Karloff Universal films and the Hammer films. And basically, there's no bad version of Frankenstein. Even, no matter how bad they are.
Absolutely.
So we just kind of wanted to add our piece to the tapestry, which is what's great about when a character becomes public domain like that. It's not just DC Comics decides that you get to usher in a new story with Superman. Now the whole world gets to kind of partake and add to the tapestry of Frankenstein. So it's really cool. It's not necessarily like nerve-wracking, because you have like a novel that's canon, so like you can really do anything with the monster, and it feels he's like the Batman of monsters. You can do anything with him and it feels kind of authentic.
This is very true. I mean, even like you were talking about with DC, even with James Gunn basically creating an adaptation of Creature Commandos, because Frankenstein, of course, is a part of it.
Oh yeah, I'm actually really excited for Creature Commandos. I love the Creature Commandos.
Oh Lord. Yeah, I'll say for me, that was sort of not a point of contention. Just like when Dalton first had the idea for Frankenstein the Unconquered, he wrote an 8-page script and he drew it out and was just like, this is going to be so cool. And I read it and I was like, I don't get it. and Yuri was like, what is there to get? Frankenstein has a broadsword. It's awesome. I'm like, okay, but why? What is any of this? So for me, it was finding that why, and finding, what we had to say about these characters that either hadn't been said before, or that hadn't been, or that was just like interesting enough that it could be dug into more. And I think we found that answer eventually. We sort of dove in a little bit more with the stories, and the evolution of it is a little bit interesting. They started as these sort of 8-page shorts that appear in our first ever published book, Descent into Dread, which is a horror anthology.
And some ash cans.
Yeah, as well as the ash cans, but those were adapted into the professional looking ones. And we had those, and we sort of toyed around with the idea of what if this was a series, and we didn't have, we couldn't justify it. We couldn't figure out why it needed to be a series. And then I don't want to spoil anything, but basically we had a character that came to mind that we're like, oh, we could explore his relationship with this character. And immediately we were like, and everything fell into place, and we're like, okay, let's do it. This is awesome. So yeah, for me, adapting an existing IP, a common, I forget what a public domain. Yeah, public domain IP is just about like respecting the original material while putting your own spin on it, and then giving it a like reason to exist. And I think Frankenstein the Unconquered does that. It's fun, it's loud, it's metal as hell. It gives us an opportunity to explore not just Frankenstein, but the Wolfman and Dracula, Jekyll and Hyde, the Invisible Man, basically the entire canon of like Halloween monsters.
Yeah.
While also saying something that was present but not as like fully explored in the original novel, namely kind of this idea of masculinity behind Frankenstein, and how sort of the negative aspects of Frankenstein can be attributed to a sort of like toxic idealism of how he wanted to be like his father and impress his father, and how that fell apart for him. Right. And now that that's all he knows, he's just trapped in the cycle of doing it. That was a really interesting aspect of the character to me in particular, and I know to Dalton. After I sort of told him about it, I was like, "Hey, I think this is what's going on." He was like, "That makes sense. That cool.
Works.
Yeah, let's do it." So yeah, no. Once we realized that we had something kind of pertinent to say about the character and the property, and that we could tell some really cool stories with it, that's when we knew that we had to go ahead and make the property.
Dalton, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's great because now that Frank is this ongoing, we can tell this big overarching narrative that dives into a lot of the themes that Wells mentioned, but the structure of the series itself is like single issue vignettes, almost like westerns, or the classic kind of Conan the Barbarian comics, where Frank rolls into a town, there is a problem, and he definitely ends up making it worse, and then he rides away into the sunset.
Right.
But by telling those kind of single issue stories where you have a whole playground where you can kind of do whatever you want in those single issue stories, while still building this big narrative throughout that culminates at the end. It's something that we don't get to do in MechaTon, because MechaTon is very streamlined in a sense. There's like a different mech every issue, but it's not like it's a different kind of story every issue. It's not definitely
it's not episodic in the same way that Frankenstein is.
Right. Yeah, and so it's really nice to be able to stretch our muscles, not just in genre and tone, but in structure.
Definitely. Now, in taking in the scene within indie comics, more often than not, and I'm starting to see it more often, you tend to see the collaboration, of course, co-writers. Now, what does that help to have the dynamic between you two, rather than just being singular in a sense?
The books wouldn't have gotten made if it was just one of us, and MechaTon definitely would have just been a dumb punch 'em up, and Frankenstein definitely would have just been a morose diatribe on masculinity if we weren't working together. We each bring something really cool to the table to balance out our weaknesses, and then by doing that, we make the other stronger by making this collaboration. So it's also just fun to work with your friend, and who's a really good like writer and an editor, so that you can just kind of spitball ideas and just like, it's fun making things with people you like.
Stop it. No, I 100% agree. Working together has made us better as individual writers. We both do and are working on individual stuff separate from each other, but we continue to collaborate as well. And we're just really good at balancing out each other's strengths and weaknesses. So that it was obvious to us after a little while that we needed to collaborate and make some cool stuff together. And it also helps to just like, gives you a really strong editor, essentially. Like if you trust someone this much, they're essentially your editor in a lot of ways. And that can be a really powerful dynamic. Plus, if you trust each other enough, you know there's enough love there and there's enough honesty there. You know when something's good. You don't have to second guess yourself, because you'll send it over and they'll be like, "Oh, dude, no notes. This is great." And if you were just doing that yourself, you know, you would sit there and you'd second guess it and you maybe go back and over edit it. But if you have someone there to confirm it, and on the flip side, if someone's like, "This isn't working at all," then you know, like, okay, I have veered way off course. We need to course correct.
Also, and most importantly, I feel if you're working on a project solo and it fails, you only have yourself to blame. If this fails, at least I can say it's Wells's fault.
If we succeed, it was me. If we fail, it was Dalton.
Yes,
that is always true.
It's always the case.
I guess it's always good to say that you're not, both of you are not yes men. So you do critique each other. And if there's something that generally awry with how the writing is going or how the path of the storyline is going, you do tend to make that adjustment.
Absolutely. And sometimes it means butting heads, and we have done that several times. And it's always led ultimately to a stronger story, to a better story. Right. So we don't mind doing it when we have to, even when it is kind of exhausting, because we're both very opinionated and we're both good at what we do. So when we are at an impasse, it can feel like we're headed into an octagon. One man or two men enter, one man leaves, then later. Which
is why our point system works really well for our collaborations, where one of us takes point on a series, and that way, if we are at this impasse and we're not moving forward at all, somebody can finally be like, "Okay, this isn't working. We're going to go with my idea, and we're going to move on, or this book isn't going to get made." And we'll be like, and then the other person has to step away. And
has to just be like, "Okay, I respect it. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine."
For sure. For sure. So how many days do we got left in the campaign for MechaTon?
Ooh. I believe
11? 12?
I believe it's 11. Let me check really quickly.
The 22nd is the final day.
All right.
We have 12 days to go.
Well,
we have 12 days to go. Although Kickstarter's a little weird, so it'll say 12, but it really means 13, I think.
Yeah, because they do count down the hours as well.
Yeah, because it'll say 3 days, and then it'll go from 3 days to 72 hours. So
for sure. So of course, 12 days left in this campaign. What can we expect more from Frankenstein the Unconquered? Are we working on an issue 3 for that?
We are absolutely working on issue 3 and 4. It will be later this year. I do not know exactly when. We have some other stuff that we're debuting as well. But yeah, we will have more Frankenstein the Unconquered on the horizon.
And number 2 is wrapping up right now.
It is being lettered. It's been fully colored, fully inked and colored, currently being lettered. And then shortly after that, we will get it printed and
boxes everywhere.
Absolutely.
So like, as far as MechaTon, like now that we're at issue 4 and 5, are we going to see a volume 1 for the entire arc in the Kickstarter campaign in the future?
Possibly is all I'll say. We have to figure out what's going on with MechaTon, whether we're continuing to do it on Kickstarter, whether we're gonna move to a Patreon model or just figure it out. Scout.
Yeah, for sure it's coming out. It'll just be
for sure
through Scoot.
Yeah. So Scout or Scoot, the YA and young adult, or the YA and all ages section of Scout is publishing MechaTon. Their issue 1 comes out March 29th. It'll be in stores everywhere. And sometime later this year, the trade will be out. I'm not going to rule out the possibility that we won't do a trade on Kickstarter as well. I think we should keep everything open right now. But for sure,
maybe a nice big omnibus when it's all done.
or like a deluxe edition or something like that. But we'll see. But in some way, shape, or form, it'll be. We will definitely direct people where to find the trade. It will exist.
For sure, man. That definitely sounds good. But I appreciate the both of you guys doing this with me. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
For anybody that is definitely out there, MechaTon, of course, is still on Kickstarter. The campaign is still live for the next 12 days. So I look forward to getting that in my hands myself. And I'm sure that everybody everybody that's basically added to the campaign so far is pretty much with bating breath, awaiting this happening. So kudos to you guys, and thank you for doing this with me. This has been awesome.
Well, thank you. It's been great.
Thank you. And real quick, I gotta say, if you are worried about like jumping into a new series, we're on issue 4 and 5. We're doing everything we can to bring everyone into the loop. So we got all the previous issues available in digital and in physical.
Never been a better time.
Yeah, never been a better time, honestly, to get on board. As well as just tons of deals on everything else and some free. We managed to get another series, Kaiju, as just a free add-on. All backers are getting 3 free issues of another comic. So
now, is there a way for customers to basically get their hands on the first 3 issues?
Yeah, to get their hands on the first 3, just the first 3, not 4 and 5. No, but so you would have to get 4 and 5 as well. But yeah, no, you can get all from issues 1 to 5. You can just get just 4 and 5. You can also get every variant cover we've ever done for issues 1 through 5. Yeah, no, we and get them individually as well as add-ons. So there's tons of different ways to grab a hold of it. We also have all our other books on there. Frankenstein the Unconquered, if you want to check that out as an add-on for MechaTon number 4 and 5, it is there. Descent into Dread, By Visibility, From the Static, all the books that we've been a part of are available on there. So go nuts.
Perfect. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your time. This is once again been awesome, and I appreciate you guys joining me. So for James Grandmaster Facts Boyce and the Facts Project, you have Wells Thompson, Dalton Shannon. Get MechaTon 4 and 5, which are now live on Kickstarter, as well as getting your hands on Frankenstein the Unconquered, which pretty much one that's currently out now, and then issue 2 that's going out, and then I'm pretty sure issue 3 is going to be coming out pretty soon. So for all of us in this podcast, thank you for everybody for joining me, and we are out.